Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's stories. The governor declared a state of emergency after the 6.4 magnitude earthquake in Northern California. Officials reported widespread damages to roads and homes. And as of Wednesday morning, 14,000 residents were still left without power. The Supreme Court put the brakes on Title 42's expiration. This after 19 attorneys general asked to let the policy stand as states expect more illegal crossings at the border. And SoCal law enforcement seized 18.5 kilos of the deadly drug fentanyl shipped through U.S.P.S. The amount can kill 9 million people, according to the DEA. After the 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck Northern California on Tuesday, both the governor and local sheriff declared a state of emergency for Humboldt County. And nearby businesses tried to help the community. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Businesses in the small California city of Dell began cleaning up after the 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck early Tuesday morning. Harry Smith, a garden store owner, said the quake didn't feel like a roller coaster, but
it was just up, down, and sideways, and about 20 seconds, and that's a long time.
The earthquake resulted in 2 fatalities and injured nearly a dozen people in Humboldt County, just hours north of San Francisco.
I think about 2:30, 6.4 is what I heard, but man, it felt like an 8. It rocked everything up, down, sideways. There's a lot of damage, as you can see. There's some structural stuff back there where you can actually see the shift of what happened.
Humboldt County is a largely rural area known for its redwood forest, local seafood, lumber industry, and dairy farms. It's also known for frequent earthquake activity.
Yeah, there were shells. They got rocking. That one's about a foot out of place. It was about a foot this way.
This is one of the main stores. There's only like 3 stores in this little town, and everybody gets everything from here. And as you can see, we have everything that was on the shelves and in the aisles is now on the floor. So we are going to be out for a few days.
The seismic quake caused power outages and damaged property such as the Fernbridge Bridge.
I drove in from Dinsmore at our place out there. I felt that earthquake out there like I was sitting right in Fortuna. It was huge.
Nearby residents said they waited over half an hour to get gas.
We had to take our baby to the doctor this morning, and we live in Petrolia, so we had to take about an hour and a half detour around because the bridge here blew out. So now we're getting gas and heading back home again.
But the one up in Eureka was way fuller than this. It was going around a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
So we decided to come down here because that one was even
And as
fuller.
far as we
Local authorities issued a water advisory for the cities of Dell and Fortuna, which were miles away from the earthquake. They warned residents in the area to boil all drinking water for 60 seconds to kill bacteria due to damaged water systems. Boiled or bottled water should be used for drinking and food prep until further notice. The quake left tens of thousands of homes without power. Most of the 72,000 county customers who lost electricity had power restored by the evening, but 14,000 were still out of power early Wednesday.
Yeah, so we're trying to donate to the community as best we can with permission from our higher-ups.
And we've been open since 6, and it's been nonstop. You know, I put a little post out that said we have emergency PVC, plumbing, electrical, and it's got out. So we're here for the community, and the communities are, you know, we're all in this together. So.
The American Red Cross established a temporary overnight shelter with food and water in the city of Fortuna. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to pause the expiration of Title 42. This comes shortly after 19 states filed an emergency application to keep the policy in place. California was not among the 19, but Governor Gavin Newsom has expressed his concern about a potential wave of people crossing the border. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts has temporarily paused a lower court's decision that would have lifted Title 42 on Wednesday. Earlier on Monday, 19 GOP-led states filed an emergency application urging SCOTUS to reverse the lower court's decision to strike down Title 42. Roberts called for an, quote, administrative stay that puts the order on hold while the justices consider the multi-state request. The Trump administration invoked Title 42 back in March 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. It allows immigration officials to quickly turn away migrants who entered the U.S. during a public health emergency. In California, which shares some of its border with Mexico, Governor Gavin Newsom expressed concern about a potential wave of people crossing the border into his state. During a visit to the California-Mexico border last week, Newsom said the sanctuary state has spent, quote, roughly $1 billion over the past 3 years to support health and safety of migrants as well as the surrounding border communities. But we cannot continue to do this work alone. According to preliminary customs and border protection data provided to the Epoch Times, the border's two busiest sectors from December 1st to December 19th were El Paso and Del Rio in Texas. These entry points counted over 70,000 illegal immigration apprehensions and an additional 29,000 who evaded arrest. California State Senator Scott Weiner has reintroduced a controversial bill that failed earlier this year. The bill is looking to decriminalize certain psychedelic drugs.
Senate Bill 58, authored by Senator Scott Weiner, was introduced on Monday as a scaled-down version of his previous Senate Bill 519. SB 519 was first introduced in February 2021 and was heavily altered before it ultimately failed in this year's legislation. The bill would have decriminalized the possession, use, and social sharing of limited quantities of certain hallucinogens, including plant-based psychedelics like DMT and psilocybin mushrooms, as well as synthetic hallucinogens like LSD, ketamine, and MDMA. According to SB 58, Weiner's newest bill, decriminalization will exclude the use of the more controversial synthetic drugs. In his latest press release, Weiner argues that the bill will help end the mass incarceration that occurred as the result of the war on drugs. And it will also increase the scientific and medical testing to treat mental health conditions such as PTSD and depression. He says, quote, since the onset of the pandemic, so many people have dealt with unemployment and financial distress, a lack of community and social isolation, and loss of friends and family. It's critical that we look to alternatives to criminalizing and incarcerating people who are using psychedelics to heal. Despite Weiner's advocacy, there is still large opposition against SB 58, saying the bill will fail again. Former police officer and current drug counselor Marty Rivera told the California Globe, quote, Weiner is trying to make it sound like nothing can go wrong with taking these drugs, but he is so wrong. For every success story, there are at least 2 others that involve a ruined life. These drugs are illegal and criminalized for so many reasons. California is set to reconvene legislation next month.
Riverside County law enforcement seized 18.5 kilograms of fentanyl for the month of December. The deadly drug was discovered through an illegal shipment through the United States Postal Service. NTD's Jackie Reels has more.
The Riverside County Gang Impact Team, or GIT, seized 18.5 kilograms of fentanyl through the U.S. mail that was being shipped. This is potentially more than 9 million lethal doses. According to Riverside District Attorney's Office, the amount has an estimated street value of more than $3 million. The GIT team arrested 37-year-old Ignacio Alcala in connection to the case. Alcala has a federal arrest warrant from an earlier investigation by the U.S. Postal Service. A search of Alcala's apartment uncovered the 18.5 kilograms of suspected fentanyl, half-pound of methamphetamine, along with multiple stolen firearms. Fentanyl is a synthetic man-made opiate that is highly addictive and less expensive than naturally occurring opioids. It is also 50 times more powerful than heroin and 100 times more than morphine. To give a reference, 1 teaspoon is roughly 5,000 milligrams of fentanyl, but with fentanyl, just 2 milligrams can be fatal. In Riverside County, officials recently launched a multi-department public awareness campaign about the dangers of the drug. Across the United States, law enforcement has found fentanyl in almost all illegal drugs. One increasing case includes victims buying what they think is oxycodone or Percocet, but turns out to be a fentanyl-laced pill.
Getting rid of so-called harmful language. Stanford University has reportedly put together a long list of words and phrases it's targeting for elimination. The university proposes alternatives to terms used by many on a daily basis.
The Wall Street Journal this week published and criticized a list of terms by Stanford University. The school describes the words and phrases as harmful language. Stanford says it's part of its Elimination of Harmful Language initiative, which the school calls a multi-phase, multi-year project to address harmful language in IT at Stanford. In addition, terms on the website are grouped into categories: ableist, ageism, culturally appropriative, gender-based, imprecise language, institutionalized racism, person first, and violent. In the ableist category, the school includes terms such as walk-in for appointments. They suggest using drop-in instead. Calling yourself an American falls in the category of imprecise language. U.S. citizen is suggested instead, because American often refers to people from the United States only, thereby insinuating that the U.S. is the most important country in the Americas. Immigrant would be replaced with the four-word term, person who has immigrated. The Wall Street Journal editorial board says this list shows that much of modern life and culture resembles the Babylon Bee. The list reportedly took 18 months to complete. Reporting by Arian Pastar, NTD News.
We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. Newly elected LA Mayor Karen Bass declared a state of emergency over LA's homelessness. She vows to house the majority of the 40,000 homeless people in the city. Convicted murderer Scott Peterson was denied a new trial in the death of his pregnant wife, Laci Peterson, in 2002. This came after Peterson's lawyer accused one of the jurors of misconduct. And a Santa Cruz resident found a lone mountain lion cub on her property. The big cat cub, named Holly, was taken to Oakland Zoo for veterinary care. That and more on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Liang Zhang. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says she vows to fix the city's homeless crisis. She says she believes the majority of homeless people in the city can be housed.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass said over the weekend that she believes 95% of the homeless population can be housed if given the offer. Bass said on NBC's Meet the Press that people will go. It takes a while. You have to do outreach. She says she hopes encampments will be, quote, significantly down, if not eliminated, in 4 years. This comes as Bass declared a state of emergency on homelessness on her first day in office. The emergency declaration is scheduled to last for 6 months and allows Bass to take more aggressive executive actions to confront the crisis. But whether the state of emergency will continue after 6 months depends on several indicators of progress. Those include the number of encampments and housing placements. Bass said a fair way to judge it would be that encampments should be significantly down, if not eliminated. There should be housing being built underway at a much more rapid pace, and there should not be 40,000 people who are unhoused, that's for sure. Her Inside Safe program will use master leasing with motels near encampments to place homeless people.
Earlier this month, California's Labor Secretary unexpectedly left her post. She was appointed by Governor Newsom back in 2021. Labor Secretary Natalie Peluggi abruptly left her post in December under uncertain circumstances. She was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom back in July 2021 as the first Latina to hold the position. The governor's communications director, Erin Mellon, told the Epoch Times that Undersecretary Stuart Knox is now serving as the acting labor secretary. She says, quote, "We thank Natalie Pellugi for her work in the administration and wish her well in her next chapter." The state's Labor and Workforce Development Agency oversees 7 departments as a member of the governor's cabinet. The position of a state labor secretary comes with a published annual compensation of $227,000. Newsom's office did not comment on the reasons for Pellugi's departure or provide any further details. The former secretary's page on the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency's website was also removed by the agency. A California judge has denied Scott Peterson's request for a new murder trial. He was charged for murdering his wife and unborn child 20 years ago.
A San Francisco judge rejected 50-year-old Scott Peterson's request for a new murder trial on Tuesday. The decision comes nearly 20 years after Peterson was charged with dumping the bodies of his pregnant wife, Laci, and their unborn child into the San Francisco Bay on Christmas Eve 2002. Peterson alleged that his trial was tainted by a rogue juror who lied about her abuse history in order to get on the panel that ultimately sent him to death row. Superior Court Ann Christine Masulo found that juror Rochelle Nice did not commit enough juror misconduct to require a new trial for Peterson. In her decision, the judge wrote, "The court concludes that juror number 7's responses were not motivated by pre-existing or improper biases against Peterson, but instead were the result of a combination of good faith misunderstanding of the questions and sloppiness in answering." Peterson's defense team expressed their disappointment in the decision and has plans to continue pushing forward. Peterson has the option to appeal the ruling.
A California judge has ruled in favor of continuing the ban on enforcing the state's animal welfare law. The new law will stay on hold as it awaits a decision from the Supreme Court.
A Sacramento County Superior Court judge ruled in favor of extending his ban on the enforcement of California's Proposition 12, also known as the Animal Welfare Law. Prop 12 requires that covered animals be housed in confinement systems that comply with specific standards for freedom of movement, cage-free design, and minimum floor space. This law also prohibits companies from conducting business within the state if restrictions are violated. The injunction to pause the law from taking effect was set to expire on February 28, 2023. But an order issued earlier this month by Judge James Arguelles said the court finds it reasonable to extend the existing injunction to July 1st, 2023, so as to allow adequate time for the adjudication of the federal constitutional issues relating to Proposition 12 that are pending before the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, back in March, the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear the case filed by the American Farm Bureau Federation and the National Pork Producers Council. Those two groups argue California's law violates the U.S. Constitution's Commerce Clause. Now, that clause restricts individual states from regulating commerce outside their borders. The injunction has been extended to July 1st, 2023 to give the Supreme Court more time to make a ruling. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
A Santa Cruz resident made a surprising discovery when she found a mountain lion cub on her property. Authorities rescued the young cub and took her to the Oakland Zoo for treatment.
A Santa Cruz resident alerted the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, or CDFW, when she found a mountain lion cub on her property. They waited several days to see if the mother mountain lion would retrieve the 3 to 4 month old female cub, but she didn't. After big cat experts determined that the cub was in critically ill condition, CDFW transported her to the Oakland Zoo's Wildlife Rescue Center. Veterinarians named the cub Holly in honor of the holiday season. Holly is continuing to receive veterinary care. This is the 22nd mountain lion the Oakland Zoo's veterinary team has rescued and treated.
Now let's check in with NTD's Thomas Christian for today's Sports Roundup.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup. So close and yet so far. The San Francisco Giants lost out on Carlos Correa after he left the team for the New York Mets late last night. On Tuesday, Correa's introductory press conference was canceled and postponed after an unspecified issue emerged during his physical with the team. Last week, the San Francisco Giants thought they had signed shortstop Correa to a 13-year, $350 million contract. However, like all deals, the massive payday was to come only after Correa submitted a clean physical. That deal was then postponed because of an unspecified issue found during the physical, and with his newfound free agency, Correa signed a deal with the Mets. Correa's deal with New York is 12 years long and worth $315 million. In a span of 5 months, the Giants have now lost out on 3 franchise players in Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and now Correa. Now we swing over to Golden State last night. Jordan Poole scored 26 points for a Warriors team playing without Stephen Curry, Andrew Wiggins, and other key players as Golden State lost to the red-hot New York Knicks. This is now the Knicks' 8th win in a row. The Knicks scored the first 8 points of the game and never trailed. They led 33-25 at the end of the first quarter. The Warriors pulled within 35-33, but a three-pointer from Quentin Grimes with 4:17 left in the second quarter gave the Knicks a 60-45 lead. New York led 69-56 at halftime. Jonathan Kuminga had 13 points, while Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Ty Jerome each had 11 for the Warriors. Emmanuel quickly scored 22 points, Jalen Brunson had 21, and 4 other Knicks scored in double figures for New York's blowout win. This was the Warriors' 3rd game playing without the injured Stephen Curry. They are 1-2 in that span, with their only win coming against the Toronto Raptors, powered by a career-high 43-point performance from Jordan Poole. Their nightmarish start to their title defense season continues as they drop to 15-17. If the playoffs were to start today, they would not even be in the play-in tournament, sitting at 11th place. Knicks 132, Warriors 94. Now we swing over to Golden State last night. Jordan Poole scored 26 points for a Warriors team playing without Stephen Curry, Andrew Wiggins, and other key players as Golden State lost to the red-hot New York Knicks. This is now the Knicks' 8th win in a row. The Knicks scored the first 8 points of the game and never trailed. They led 33-25 at the end of the first quarter. The Warriors pulled within 35-33, but a three-pointer from Quentin Grimes with 4:17 left in the second quarter gave the Knicks a 60-45 lead. New York led 69-56 at halftime. Jonathan Kuminga had 13 points, while Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Ty Jerome each had 11 for the Warriors. Emmanuel quickly scored 22 points, Jalen Brunson had 21, and 4 other Knicks scored in double figures for New York's blowout win. This was the Warriors' 3rd game playing without the injured Stephen Curry. They are 1-2 in that span, with their only win coming against the Toronto Raptors, powered by a career-high 43-point performance from Jordan Poole. Their nightmarish start to their title defense season continues as they drop to 15-17. If the playoffs were to start today, they would not even be in the play-in tournament, sitting at 11th place. Knicks 132, Warriors 94.
And that's all for the sports.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.